It's Tuesday, April 15. In the headlines, Education Minister Senator Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon says primary exit profile exam, PEP, is under review. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago and Nigeria signs historic air services agreement. In sports, West Indies women suffer setback in World Cup qualifiers. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Changes could be on the way for the primary exit profile, better known as PEP exam. Education Minister Senator Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon has revealed that the exam is currently under internal review, with the aim of determining whether it's still meeting the developmental needs of students. The PEP, which was introduced to enhance academic performance and critical thinking, may be restructured as part of efforts to strengthen the education system. While specific adjustments have not yet been announced, the minister says the findings from the ongoing assessments will guide the next steps, with updates expected soon. The review comes on the heels of the 2024 sitting of the exam, where nearly 90% of students were placed in a school of their first choice, and 60% achieved proficient or highly proficient scores. Still, the ministry believes there's room for improvement. The goal, according to the minister, is to ensure that the assessment is not only rigorous, but relevant, reflecting the needs of today's learners and better preparing them for future success. The Realtors Association of Jamaica is warning the public about an increase in scammers posing as real estate professionals. Chairman Nevin Nish says reports of criminals using deceptive tactics to target property seekers have surged. In response, the association has teamed up with the police and other key stakeholders to address the issue. Danita Rodney tells us more.
The rise of social media has led to an increase in fake pages designed to facilitate fraud, with the real estate industry being a prime target. One common scheme involves criminals stealing legitimate property listings from realtors, creating fake social media profiles, and changing contact details to mislead potential buyers and renters. Unsuspecting victims are often duped into paying for property viewings or making deposits. Nevin Nish, chairman of the Realtors Association of Jamaica's Advocacy and Lobbying Committee, is urging the public to remember that licensed realtors in Jamaica never charge fees for property viewings.
Real estate is an emotional activity, and so what is that these persons would have preyed on persons who are really looking for properties, and because yes, the property market is hard to find, it's challenging to find properties, then they say offer them this some sweet deal, as in to come and look at this property you have to pay a deposit. Real estate persons do not ask for a deposit to come and view any property. If the deal is too sweet, property is listed at 100 million. And when you look in a different area, you see it's now there for about 35 million. That is a red flag. With that, they'll ask you to make a deposit, and once you make a deposit, they'll come and show it to you, and you are then scammed.
He is advising prospective buyers and renters to ask for a realtor's pocket license and official ID issued by the Real Estate Board to confirm their credentials.
You want to ensure that you're dealing with a legitimate real estate agent. You can easily check the Real Estate Board website and even the RAJ's website and type in to see if that person who you're conducting business with is who he say he is. Ensure that they have a registered office, legitimate business office that persons can go to. Even the way all these people speak to you, it does not come off in a coherent way, just all over the place, So these are just some of the small things to just look out for.
In response to the growing threat of real estate fraud, the Real Estate Association held a meeting in March with law enforcement, industry representatives, and regulators to develop a strategy to tackle the issue. Chairman Nish says the association is committed to protecting the industry's integrity and preventing property seekers from falling victim to scams.
Land is the primary source of all material wealth. From it comes everything. And so we have to safeguard this industry. And so if we have these scammers who are threatening to run amok and derail the good integrity of this industry, then Jamaica stands to lose. We cannot allow something like this to deter any of the trust that has been built over the years. We have to step up on this matter. We will see a consistent public education campaign going on as at the end of this month, and you would see that all the real estate brokerages would be invited to partner in terms of pushing out this information, because most brokerages have been impacted by this.
Jamaica is making bold strides to become the 4th global logistics node, and the government says it's not just a vision, it's already happening. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness says several key initiatives are underway to strategically position the country in the global supply chain. Dr. Holness was speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for the $13 million Kingston Gateway Commercial and Warehouse Complex on Marcus Garvey Drive, where he also announced that the Port Authority of Jamaica is set to break ground within 2 months on the long-awaited Caymanas Special Economic Zone project.
The site is being prepared to mitigate against climate change risks such as flooding, and will be equipped with modern infrastructure, utilities, direct, and I want to emphasize this, we're not just going to be building a special economic zone. We're also going to create a direct link from the site to the port itself. So this is going to create within itself a true near port special economic zone.
The Prime Minister says regulatory reforms, trade agreements, and improvements in business facilitation are all a part of the government's broader push to attract investment and ensure economic stability.
We're making a commitment to ensuring that you have the technological support, the best internet, the best regulatory environment, and strong cybersecurity, which is a critical issue, particularly in the global services industry, a strong data protection regime, which will support the development of the industry, and indeed the strategic and ethical deployment of artificial intelligence within the industry.
Upon completion, the development will feature 21 modern warehouses, providing more than 112,000 square feet of rentable space built to global standards. Now for an update on the weather. The Meteorological Service has continued a flash flood watch for low-lying and flood-prone areas of St. Mary, Portland, St. Catherine, Clarendon, and Manchester, effective until 7 p.m. on Tuesday. According to the Met Service, the broad trough currently extending across the central and western Caribbean has been generating unstable weather conditions across sections of Jamaica since Friday. The current forecast is for periods of showers and thunderstorms, which may be heavy at times, to continue across Jamaica on Tuesday, especially across northeastern and south central parishes. Given the persistent rainfall across these parishes and subsequent soil saturation, the likelihood remains for flash flooding to occur, even during periods of moderate rainfall. Fishers and other marine interests should continue to exercise caution, as sea conditions will deteriorate in the vicinity of showers and thunderstorms. A flash flood watch means that flash flooding is possible, and residents are advised to take precautionary measures, Keep informed by listening to further releases from the Meteorological Service and be ready for quick action if flooding is observed or if a warning is issued. It's often brushed off with the phrase, just a touch of sugar, but diabetes is far from harmless. In fact, it's a silent killer, affecting thousands across the region. Experts are warning that diabetes, especially type 2, can go undetected for years, quietly damaging vital organs before symptoms appear. Today, we take a closer look at how this chronic condition affects the body, the importance of early intervention, and the lifestyle changes that could save lives.
It is deadly. People have a way of saying, oh, I have a touch of sugar. And I try to explain, it's not a touch, it's a big lick.
Diabetes, a chronic medical condition that affects how the body processes blood sugar or glucose. Glucose is an essential source of energy for the body's cells, but to use it properly, the body needs insulin, a hormone produced by the pancreas. Diabetes occurs when the body either doesn't produce enough insulin or can't use it effectively, leading to high blood sugar levels.
It doesn't cause a lot of dramatic signs in the first instance, but then it, like a hammer, it just comes down on you. And at that point, organs begin to fail and the quality of life starts to fall.
Generally, there are two types.
What you call the type 1, which is where the body is not producing this hormone called insulin that really drives all the nutrition into the body cells. So if the body is not producing it, then everything accumulates and will give you the problems of diabetes. And you have to manage that by putting back that hormone insulin. And that little hormone is a protein, so you can't swallow it. Okay? It has to be given by injection.
And the most common?
Type 2 is over 95% of the total diabetes population. And this is where insulin is being produced, in the body, but it's not working right. The tissues are not responding to it, or when it gets there, it is not working in the way in which the nature's pathways have set it up to work, to bring in the sugars and the fats and so on into the cells. So that is the type 2. So what we try to do is assist the body to get it to respond better to the insulin. So quite often that assistance may be by way of oral medications, tablets and so on.
But there is another type, some would say.
During pregnancy, women now undergo increased what you call body changes, and that can bring out, the underlying diabetic problem. Interestingly, at the end of the pregnancy, after the delivery of the infant, the blood sugars drop dramatically back into the normal range. That is called gestational. That is during pregnancy.
But even those mothers have to take care, because within a few years, they too may develop the condition, and their children born in such condition of gestation diabetes are at risk. So what can persons suffering from diabetes do to manage the condition?
They need to eat less in terms of quantities and spreading it out. Okay? Small amounts during the day. Right? Avoid too much starches. When you say starches, the yams and the potatoes and the banana and those things. And oils, fatty foods, fried foods. Avoid that in the evening. And a Caribbean thing, when you come home in the evening, that's when you have the big dinner. Stop it. Have your big meal at lunchtime. When you come home in the evening, have something lighter, vegetable salad, that kind of thing. Because you don't want to go to bed soon, digesting starch, because your sugars are going. You're not up and about to work it off. So the sugars rise, settle in the blood vessels and cause trouble. So it is the kind of lifestyle that is key.
Time now for the business report with Denise Williams.
Welcome to today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, here to bring you the stories shaping the financial world and guiding your journey to smarter business decisions. Let's dive into the top headlines. Companies listed on the stock exchange have released financial results. Food distribution company Paramount Trading Jamaica Limited unaudited financials for the 9 months ended February 28, 2025 reports a net loss of $43.07 million. Then logistics and transportation firm Knutsford Express Services Limited unaudited financials for the 9 months ended February 28, 2025 reports 9 months net profit of $169.04 million. For the trading period ending April 14, 2025, these were the most actively traded stocks. Toll road operator Trans-Jamaican Highway US dollar shares with 3,758,169 units traded, representing 23.10% of market sales volume. And again with Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited Jamaican dollar shares with 3,618,802 units traded, representing 22.24% of market sales volume. Alternative energy provider Wigton Energy Limited with 1,795,684 units traded, representing 11.04% of market sales volume. We now shift our focus to the Forex market rates set by the Bank of Jamaica. On April 14, 2025, the Bank of Jamaica reported US $64.01 million purchased and US $54.76 million sold by Forex traders. Forex traders earned 99 cents per dollar, selling the US at $158.27 and buying the US at $157.28. The Canadian dollar netted Forex traders $1.71 per transaction, with selling at $114.49 and buying at $112.78. The British pound yielded Forex traders $3.72 in profit, with selling at $208.29 and buying at $204.57. For our credit report tip of the day, if you're serious about acquiring property, even in a high-price market, your credit must be positioned for power. If buying real estate is part of your wealth plan, your credit score is one of your greatest financial tools. Here are a few suggestions to sharpen that tool. Set up automatic payments. Prevent future late payments, which make up 35% of your credit score. And also pay down credit balances. Keep utilization under 30% and under 10% if you're aiming for the best loan terms. And that wraps up today's business report. I'm Denise Williams, reminding you that every financial decision is a step towards your future. Until next time, stay tuned.
In regional news, a landmark deal more than 2 decades in the making is set to open new skies between the Caribbean and Africa. After 23 years of negotiations, Trinidad and Tobago has officially signed a bilateral air services agreement with Nigeria, paving the way for stronger air links between the two regions. Tarian Brown-Campbell has the details.
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Amory Brown, said it took 23 years to negotiate an air service agreement with the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He was addressing a signing ceremony for a bilateral air service agreement between Trinidad and Tobago and Nigeria.
I'm very pleased, therefore, that we have been able to complete the process to bring into effect Trinidad and Tobago's very first bilateral air services agreement with an African state.
Minister of Works and Transport Rohan Sinanan said the economic benefits to this nation go beyond additional tourist arrivals.
Trinidad is positioned to be that hub. And with support from Nigeria and the rest of the African states, with the support of some of the agreements that we have signed before, within the last couple of years, we are poised to be that hub here in the Caribbean region.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's Minister of Aviation and Aerospace, Festus Keyamo, endorsed Minister Sinanan's assertions that this country becoming an international hub.
And as your influence in Africa grows, we offer you to be the hub of Africa. Nigeria opens its door to Trinidad and Tobago. Come and be the hub of Africa. We're going to look back, at home and see the airlines that have the capacity to start this route immediately. We urge you to also look back home and, start this route immediately. Let's create the traffic. Let's create the routes. Let's revive the route again.
An international hub is a central airport used by one or more airlines to concentrate passenger traffic and facilitate connecting flights.
The government of Grenada has entered into a new air service agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, establishing a framework for international commercial air transport and paving the way for enhanced connectivity, tourism, trade, investment opportunities as well. More in this GBN News report.
The signing of this air service agreement marked a significant step in strengthening diplomatic ties between Grenada and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and expanding international connectivity. The agreement was officially signed this morning in Doha, Qatar, by Prime Minister and Minister for Civil Aviation, Dickon Mitchell, and His Excellency the President of the General Authority of Civil Aviation, Mr. Abdulaziz bin Abdullah Al Duwalish. The signing followed discussions between His Excellency the Vice President of Air Transport and International Cooperation, the Director of the Bilateral Agreement Department, and other members of the technical team from Grenada and Saudi Arabia. This air service agreement establishes a framework for international commercial air transport services, promoting greater connectivity, tourism, trade, and investment. It also aims to regulate administrative and operational provisions, traffic rights, tariffs, code sharing, and other aspects of air travel, such as safety and security between the two signatory countries. Prime Minister Mitchell hailed the agreement as a pivotal step in Grenada's efforts to expand its global aviation network and open new markets for tourism and business. The Prime Minister added the agreement reflects Grenada's commitment to diversifying our international partnerships while creating new opportunities for economic growth, cultural exchanges, and tourism development. Senior representative from the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Marlon Carter, explained that the agreement lays the framework for how international aviation will be conducted between countries that are parties to the agreement.
Benefits is that these agreements govern the rights of airlines that are designated by the parties, and also they take into consideration the reassurances of security, safety, tariffs, and various other aspects that allow airlines to comfortably provide services to each other's countries. They also take into consideration code sharing agreements. So by way of an air services agreement, countries can have direct or a bit of an indirect means of providing these services if they choose to do direct flights or by code share agreements.
This air service agreement supports the deepening of diplomatic relations between Grenada and Saudi Arabia across multiple sectors. It also positions Grenada as a premier destination for travelers from that side of the world seeking a unique experience.
Labour Minister Joseph Hamilton is reaffirming Guyana's commitment to human rights and the use of artificial intelligence to empower its people, especially Afro-Guyanese. Speaking at a United Nations event in New York on Monday, Minister Hamilton addressed a global audience at the 4th session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, where this year's focus is on reparatory justice in the age of AI.
In terms of the right of education and human resource development, the Guyana Online Academy of Learning has awarded thousands of scholarships over the last 4 years, providing free online education. This is aimed at creating a modern workforce, including by facilitating access for residents of rural and remote areas. As we intensify our efforts, we are well aware that artificial intelligence has the potential to significantly aid development, but the digital gap between developed and developing countries must be narrowed. Guyana will therefore continue to advocate for digital justice. Let us continue to advance the fight for reparatory justice, and AI must be part of that conversation.
In sports, we get the latest from the world of cricket. The West Indies women's cricket team suffered a major setback in their bid for a spot in the ICC Women's World Cup after a crushing 65-run defeat to Pakistan in their third qualifier match. After a tough loss to Scotland and a narrow win over Ireland, the regional side needed a victory to stay in contention. More in this report.
Having opened their campaign with a narrow defeat to Scotland and then edging past Ireland by 6 runs, the regional side came into this fixture needing a win to keep their hopes alive. However, the latest result has left them in a vulnerable position heading into the final stretch of group play. Pakistan, batting first at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, compiled 191 all-out in 49.5 overs. Sidra Amin anchored the innings with a steady 54, receiving valuable contributions from Muniba Ali 33 and Sidra Nawaz 23. West Indies bowlers stuck to their task admirably. Hayley Matthews, Afi Fletcher and Karishma Ramharat each took 2 wickets, while youngster Ashmini Munisar continued her impressive form with economical figures of 1 for 29 from her full quota of 10 overs.
Should carry and does. Good catch being taken by Gajnabi. She's clatting card for Pakistan. Quite a few starts on that table, but
what followed was a nightmare for the Caribbean side. Their reply got off to the worst possible start when Captain Hayley Matthews was removed for a golden duck. LBW to her opposite number, Fatima Sana. The West Indies innings never found any rhythm thereafter. Though there were flashes of resistance, Aliyah Aline made 22, Shabika Gajnabi added 21, and Stefani Taylor chipped in with 17. The batting unit failed to recover. The West Indies were ultimately bundled out for 126 in 39.2 overs. Fatima Sana starred with the ball, finishing with figures of 3 for 16. She was ably supported by Ramin Shamim with 2 for 26 and Nashra Sandhu 2 for 31, who applied constant pressure. The Caribbean side hurt themselves with poor running between the wickets, as Zeta James and Shemaine Campbell were dismissed via runouts, compounding the team's troubles. Now with just 1 win from 3 matches and a faltering net run rate, the West Indies are on shaky ground. The margin of defeat could prove damaging in what's expected to be a tightly contested race for qualification. Pakistan, meanwhile, took a step forward with a win, solidifying their standing in the group as the race for the 2 World Cup spots intensifies.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.